I just came back from I just came back from outside from a photo walk, which did not go very well. I did not get any good images, so what I thought instead to record this review video about the Nikon Zf. I use the Nikon Zf extensively for the past 2 weeks, so now I have a better understanding on which camera is better for me, so that I can tell you about the pros, cons, differences between these two cameras if you are considering buying one or if you just want to confirm your purchase, basically. But let's roll back the time just a bit and let me tell you a bit about my journey in the photography realm. Hey there! First of all, I wanted to thank you that you tuned into this video, and I also wanted to apologize for making this video a bit too long maybe, but I really wanted to express my experience with the Nikon Zf based on being a Fujifilm user, and I also wanted to explain a bit more in detail the differences between these two cameras based on what I found important. So yeah, bear with me, and I tried to segment the video as well as possible so you can navigate it around with the chapters. So enjoy! Let's get back to the video. In the past few years, I switched between camera brands quite a lot because I really wanted to test out different brands, even though I went through Nikon's, Sony's, Lumix and Fujifilms. After each switch, I always kept gravitating back towards Fujifilm for some reason. My first camera that I bought with my own money was the Fujifilm X-T5. This camera was actually everything I wanted in the beginning of my photography journey. After a year or so, I started wondering what's all about this full-frame sensor and why is it so much better than APS-C based on videos and articles that I read. So my first step towards this switching systems process started with buying a Nikon Z6. It was an awesome camera. I started to understand what the advantages are for full frame. So after the Nikon Z6, I tried out the Z50, but right away I did not like the results I was getting. I'd rather stayed with Fujifilm if the only difference between switching to Nikon Z50 was to have a better grip and a more DSLR style body. So I switched back to Fujifilm, but this time I switched back to an X-T3. I bought the X-T3 3 times in total because of this switching back and forth between brands. It was a switching period between Fuji and Sony. I had the Fuji X-T3, then the Sony A7R Mark II, then again the X-T3, then the A7C, and then back again to the X-T3. After I switched between Fuji and Sony back and forth, I got to a point where I saw the Lumix S5 Mark II. At this point in time, I was also considering creating my first YouTube channel. Even though the S5 Mark II was an excellent video camera and I was also able to create nice photos with it, but this whole video creation thing did not resonate with me at that time, so I had to ditch that camera as well because it was really focused mostly on being a really good video camera, and so I switched back to Fujifilm, but at this time I bought the X-T5. I also bought the X-T5 3 times. This current one is the third one. After having a few X-T5s, I bought the Sony A7 IV for the Japan trip that we just had in May, with the same idea that this is the time where I will actually start a YouTube channel and will create travel vlogs and stuff like that. This time I actually started a YouTube channel and I actually keeping myself to it, but I still decided that the Sony A7 IV was not the camera for me. I needed something a lot smaller and a lot quicker to take out and start filming with, so For that purpose, I got the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, which is an excellent camera. I also use it for these kind of videos, and the video quality is holding up really well. That brings us to today, and the current iteration of my camera switching process led me to the Nikon Zf, and this, my friend, might actually be the perfect camera for me. Let me explain. I want to start with the design and build quality of a camera, because this is a really important factor if you are thinking about the fact that a camera, based on how it looks and how it feels, makes you want to shoot more or less. And the Nikon Zf does not disappoint in this department. Actually, it might just be the best camera that I ever had in terms of build quality and feel. In comparison, the Fujifilm X-T5 is not the worst camera that I had, but almost. Only the X-T30 and maybe the Nikon Z50 that goes below the build quality of the Fujifilm X-T5. It's not to say that it's a bad feeling camera, because it is not. It is really a decent camera, and because of the slightly lower quality materials and build, they managed to make this camera a lot lighter than the Nikon Zf. Speaking of build quality and how well built the Nikon Zf is, I can only complain about one thing, and that is the bottom plate and the battery door. It's not that these are bad, but they don't really match up with the rest of the camera. And that's a shame, because I mean, if you already put the effort in to create something like this amazing, then I think they just should have gone with the bottom part as well and make it a proper match with the rest of the camera. The Nikon Zf is a really big camera. It's quite a bit larger than the X-T5, to be honest. The Nikon Zf weighs about 710 grams with the battery and the SD card, while the Fujifilm X-T5 weighs around 557 grams. And if you can see and kind of have an idea about the size difference between these two, and the thickness and the grip side of things from the top and from the front. So the weight is a bit more than I think this camera should have, and not because 700 grams is so much heavier than 550 grams, although it is a bit, but the difference is not that huge. And if you put the correct lens on it, you can have a lighter system with the Nikon compared to the Fujifilm. As I already said in the previous video, the Nikon with the 28 2.8 versus the Fujifilm X-T5 with the 23 1.4, the Fujifilm is actually almost 100 grams heavier in that setup. But because the lack of a grip on the Nikon, you feel the weight a lot more. So on that note, I want to go to the next topic of this review, which is handling. So the handling is the most important thing about a camera in terms of how much you actually enjoy using the process of taking photos with that specific camera. And I think that there is a smaller part that can be objectively viewed, and then there is a larger subjective part of this topic. Even if you like this camera and how it feels in your hand and how it feels when you are holding in one hand and stuff like that, or with two hands, doesn't matter. You can objectively look at it and say that this camera does not have a grip. The small protrusion that they call a grip is a joke, and you cannot grab the camera properly. You will need to hold the camera with your fingers instead, and because of the weight of the camera and any lens you put on it, basically, you almost make it close to 1 kilogram. It's not a good experience to hold a camera like this. I can do it. This is how I went out and shot most of my images out there. It also lacks a thumb rest type of protrusion in the back of the camera. And both of these things are well made on the Fujifilm X-T5. It has a really decent grip in the front. I can hold on to the camera like this without any issues. My hand doesn't get tired at all. And it also has that thumb rest protrusion in the back that, combined with the grip, is just an amazing experience to hold on to the camera like this. I can get by with it, and as the time went on, I started to get used to this weird grippy situation, let's say that. But I still ordered the grip and a extension to create a thumb rest and stuff like that, so we'll see how it goes. I just got the 50mm 1.4 and the small rig grip as well. And what I can say for the first impression, because I got them today, the 50mm lens is a decently big lens, and the whole setup like this with the grip as well goes above 1.3 kilograms, but the grip is actually making a pretty big difference, and I'm quite happy with how the grip changed the way I can hold the camera. I think this one is a good one, but I'm also waiting on another grip, which is a leather style grip. It has a smaller grip section, but it's supposed to be a bit lighter as well. Although this small rig grip is also light enough, it's about 93 grams. It still needs the thumb rest, and that's also coming because I also ordered the thumb rest. But yeah, I just wanted to update you on these things because they just arrived today and I'm out right away testing them. Let's get back to the video. Also, as I try to explain, because you need to hold the camera like this, and the AEL and the AFL button is too far to the left side, when I put my hand around the camera, my thumb does not sit in a place where I can easily reach that button, when I also need to hold the weight of the camera in one hand. This made me, for the first time in a long time, go back from using the back button focus to use the focus on the shutter release button, which at first was a bit weird because I really like using the back button focusing solution, but I had to. This was my only solution for now until I get the grip and the thumb extension to make this whole system work, so that's that. The mechanism of the screens are also different between these two cameras. The Fujifilm has a 3-way tilting screen, and I think this is the best screen ever made on a camera. I know that there is a nice combination between a flip-out screen and a tilting screen on Sony a7R Mark V and probably some other models as well. And that may be the best screen, but I never used it, so I don't know. And all the others that I used, between those, this is the best screen. It can tilt up, it can tilt down, and it can tilt up in portrait orientation as well. And this part is the best thing ever. On the Nikon, you have a flippy screen. So you can basically have all those positions and use the camera from up above or down below or portrait orientation, and you can also do selfies, which are nice. It's a bit more work to get the screen quickly out in front of you when you want to shoot lower or up, and you also appear to be more visible to others when you do so, because this tells a bit more clearly to the subjects that you will take a photo, compared to having the screen not even visible to them and just going off like this. But whatever. I can work around the screen and I don't really mind it, basically. And I also like the fact that I can take selfies sometimes. Another thing that is related kind of to handling, but also usability, is the fact that you don't have a choice for having quick access to minimum shutter speed changing or to have custom profiles saved or any of that stuff. So This has a PASM dial, not a dial but a switch, but it does not have custom profiles. So you lose that part. The Fujifilm does not have a PASM, I mean this X-T5 does not have a PASM dial, but it still retained the custom profile feature, and it has 7 of them, while also having 3 auto ISO with minimum shutter speed settings that you can choose with the command dial. So you have options. Nikon does not give you any in this regard, so you can quickly switch between different auto ISO and minimum shutter speed setups. It would be nice, and I beg Nikon that they would change this in their setting, because they don't have an option to have a quick shortcut button to the minimum shutter speed setting on the auto ISO page. That would be a really good addition. The best would be if I could just click the button and I could change quickly the minimum shutter speed with the command dial. That would be the best solution for this, because I'm mostly shooting in aperture priority mode with auto ISO and minimum shutter speed. There are cases when I know what the result I want at the end, and that result requires to set the settings manually, but it's not that often. Also, I want to react as quickly as possible to the situations in front of me, and that's only possible if you let the camera do what it knows best and the quickest. Which leads perfectly into the next section, which is the performance of these cameras. The performance of the camera is also a really important factor when you consider buying one, but I would say it's not the most important factor. Because if you think about it, if the camera you bought is a really amazing camera in terms of handling, and you really like how it looks and how it feels, and you just want to go out with it, then you might overlook some of the quirks and faults of the camera in terms of performance. But if it's the other way around and you have an amazing camera in terms of performance and it never skips a beat, but I don't know, it does not inspire you, or it lacks a bunch of features that would make it the best feeling camera and stuff like that, then what's the point? That being said, this camera performs excellently. There are just a few things here and there where I think they could improve, but they don't have to, because as is, it works amazing. You cannot compare the autofocus of the Nikon Zf to the Fujifilm X-T5. For the Fujifilm X-T5, I get around 70% hit rate. With the Nikon, I get above 90%. 90% of the shots are in focus, and the rest of the 10% are mostly front focusing. The sensor is really good. It has a really nice high ISO handling. It also resolves details really nicely, although it's only a 24.5 megapixel sensor, which I'm not saying is not enough. It is. Even if you want to crop, you can have like still 10 megapixels with a 1.5 DX crop, which I also set one of my buttons to do. But I think 30, 35, 33 megapixel would be a really nice addition. The high-speed continuous shooting for me is also enough. The high setting gives you around 7 to 8 frames per second, and the autofocus works perfectly in that mode. You have the high plus, which goes to 14 frames per second, but at that point the autofocus is basically disabled, and this is the only place where the Fujifilm wins over the Nikon, because it can do 15 frames per second with the autofocus working decently well. The processor of the camera is really good. It's fast. I never had any issues with the camera freezing or getting any error messages. The formatting of the SD card is quick. The startup time is really quick. So let's just show you this. I will start up the camera. That's it. It's up and running. So yeah, I don't really have any issues with that. Fujifilm camera. Just a tad slower, but this is also usable. The screen. The screens are good on both cameras, but it's a bit better on Nikon. I think it's a bit brighter and a bit better looking, but the EVF that's a totally different story. Both of them have 3.69 million dots, but for some reason the Nikon's EVF is just on another level. All the cameras I had before in the past, all of them had 3.69 million dots EVFs with somewhere between 0.7 and 0.8 of a magnification. The Nikon has the biggest magnification of 0.8, and that makes it just a tad bigger than any of the other ones. And for some reason it's also the clearest and the best looking in terms of colors and all of that stuff. So the last thing that I want to talk about performance is something that I will not talk about in this video because I don't really care about the video performance of this camera. I never even turned on the video mode. I never shot a single frame in video, so I have no opinion on that. I just saw and heard from others that it can shoot really nice video, the quality is great, it has analog, and that's basically it. You can use this camera for taking videos, but honestly, other than the fact that it has a flippy screen and that's helping you in creating videos, I don't think that this camera is made for video taking. At least that's my opinion. So what's next? Maybe a category where the Fujifilm can maybe come back and hit the Nikon a bit harder in the face? Probably. Yeah, that's the lenses category. They say that a camera is as good as the lenses that are available for it. Or another saying, you marry your lenses and you date your camera, because you want to keep the lenses for a longer period of time than your camera. Cameras come and go, you can switch, that's one item in your kit. But if you are trying to constantly switch between systems, switching lenses, that's the hardest part. And you want to pick a system where you have access to the lenses that you actually need. And I'm not saying that Nikon does not have an excellent lineup of lenses. It has. It's just nowhere near as extensive and nice like the Fujifilm lens lineup. Let's not talk about Sony's lens lineup because they are the king of lens availability. But between these two, obviously Fujifilm have been on the market for longer, so they have a lot more lenses to choose from. Nikon has their own lenses that are great, and they really are. You cannot really buy a Nikon lens for the Z mount that will not perform exceptionally well. Now, they also have a few third-party lenses from Tamron and a few from Viltrox that are autofocus. And those lenses are also great. But if you look at the lineup, most of the third-party lenses are for APS-C. So for full frame, you only have just a few to choose from Viltrox and Tamron. And that's it with Nikon. They will not allow any third-party manufacturer to create good full-frame lenses for the Z-mount if those lenses are competing directly with something that Nikon has in its own lineup. Compare that to Fujifilm, they basically allow everything and anything. So they have a bunch of great lenses from Tamron and Sigma and Viltrox and Sirui, or how you pronounce that, Samyang, Rokinon, basically the same brand, and so on. TT Artisan, Mitacon, Maike, how you pronounce also that. These are just a bunch of weird named brands. But yeah, you know, you get the point. You have a lot more choice with Fujifilm. And yes, I know those are APS-C lenses for an APS-C system. And some of them are also available on Nikon, but that's the point of this comparison. We are talking about the Zf, which is a full-frame camera, and the Fujifilm X-T5, which is an APS-C camera. And after you look up all the lenses they have, and if you see that you can get by or you are satisfied with what Nikon offers for their full-frame Z mount, then that's not a problem anymore. That's the kind of situation I'm in, actually. For Fujifilm, and basically for any other camera brand I had, I always wanted to have some sort of general everyday zoom lens for traveling, and most of the time I pick something, either a 24-70 or a 16-35, or between some sort of those lenses. I have the new 16-50mm f2.8 to 4.8 kit lens, and it's a really good lens. it performs exceptionally. If you want to see a full review on that, then you can head on to my blog and read the review about this lens specifically. But for Nikon, I decided to go on another route, mostly because I saw that I have a really good opportunity to buy the 24 to 200 lens open box for 530 euros, which I think it's a really nice price for that lens. And I really wanted a telephoto zoom lens for a long time, because the last time I had a nice zoom lens was when I first had the Fujifilm X-T5. That time I also had the Fujifilm X-F 55 to 200 millimeter lens. But since then, I never had a lens that went beyond 85 millimeters. So that's what I bought, and I'm really happy with the lens. It's a really great all-around lens that you can put on the camera and use it when you are traveling and when you don't know what awaits you on your journeys. But I also need a faster lens, and that's also a prime lens. For the Fujifilm, I bought the 23mm f1.4, the new one, the RLMWR. And I bought that one because my favorite focal length is 35mm full frame equivalent. That's one of the main focal lengths that I want to shoot in most of the time. Now, Nikon has two 35s, 1.8 and a 1.4, but I wanted to have something even smaller than that. So I got the 28mm f2.8, which is this tiny, small, full frame, not really pancake, but almost pancake lens. And until this point, I really like this lens. I use this mostly on f5.6 or f8 when I'm going out for street photography. And when the light drops, I use f2.8, and it performs really well in those kind of situations. The third lens, which I did not have for the Fujifilm, now on the Nikon, besides the 24 to 200, the 28, I also ordered the 50mm 1.4. I chose that one because I really liked what I saw about the lens having a really nice character towards vintage lenses, but still maintaining a decent sharpness and a good autofocus performance and a really nice price tag to go with it. I bought it used for 400 euros, which I also think is a pretty decent price for a lens that is excellent condition, based on mpb.com. Not sponsored. There's a long way until I get sponsored by these companies, so don't worry. All of what I say are my own thoughts. Nobody bought me. So we tackled everything that is hardware and software related, basically. What else is there that will make you think about switching to another brand? Something that is not really tangible physically. That would be the colors of the images, the colors of both RAW files and JPEGs, how easy it is to work with the RAWs, and how nice the JPEGs look out of the camera. First of all, theoretically, using RAW files would allow you to do anything with the images and get the colors you want no matter what. But depending on the RAW file that you are working with, it still can be a lot more difficult to get to a point where you are happy with the results compared to another camera, for example. And in this case, the Fujifilm RAW files have the camera matching color profiles in both Lightroom or Capture One, which when applied, they bring you to a really nice starting point right away. I can find a really nice style of editing that I like a lot faster with the Fujifilm RAW files. And this was probably the most disappointing fact on any other camera that I had besides Fujifilm. It doesn't matter that it was a Nikon or a Sony or the Lumix. And even with the Nikon Zf, I still have that feeling when I open up a file in Lightroom that, besides the fact that it is sharp and it has that crispy feeling that I also like, I cannot for the love of me find the perfect balance of editing to get to the point that when I'm happy, like how I can get to with the Fujifilm RAW files. That's until this point. It's a paid solution, unfortunately, but from the results I see, I think it's really worth it. It costs about 100 euros to buy picture profiles from Cobalt Image. I'm not sure if you heard about them, probably because I heard about them from others. And they have a base picture profile set for each camera sensor, basically. So that's one part that you need to buy. And then the second part you need to buy are the Fujifilm digital camera profiles. This combination of profiles basically allows you to have any camera other than Fujifilm turn their RAW files with the base picture profile into a neutral look that will become the same for all the cameras. And from that point on, you will apply the Fujifilm profiles and get the look of any of the Fujifilm film simulations. They are not 100% the same to what you will get from Fujifilm RAW files, but they are damn close. And this really allowed me to create 5 really nice presets. I worked hard on this one because I wanted to get to a point where I just import the files and apply one of my presets on the files to get rid of most of the editing as fast as possible. And I managed to get something that I'm really happy with. So the 5 presets that are based on the Cobalt image profiles, those are the ones that I use because I paid for the image profiles and I get the results I want with those from the Nikon files. But for you who don't want to spend the extra 100 euros for the Cobalt image profiles, but still find my editing style nice and you want to replicate it, maybe you don't want to spend time editing and creating your own presets because you don't care, or you just want a one-click solution that will get you to a really nice film-like style of editing. I really worked hard on recreating the presets that I created for myself with the Adobe standard profiles so that you can use those for any other camera that you want without paying for the Cobalt image profiles. They are not 100% recreation of my presets, but they are about 90% there. And you can have a look on my website to see for yourself what the presets do to the images. I have a bunch of images as an example on the store page where I have the preset pack available for you to buy if you want to support my channel and you like the editing style I have. I just launched the store on my webpage and I just launched these preset packs, so I also have a launch sale going on. But yeah, if you consider supporting me, then go ahead and look at the presets. But yes, this is the journey I got through with the Nikon Zf in these 2 weeks. And I really got to a point where I'm actually really happy with the results I get from these files. They really have now those Fujifilm colors in my images with the crispiness that the Bayer sensor has. And last but not least, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is recipes. Because Nikon also went into the world of recipes. There are Fujifilm recipes and there are Nikon recipes, which are similar but different enough. So Fujifilm gives you a few interesting settings. They are a bit different from what you have in Lightroom. You have shadows and highlight settings and sharpness and clarity, and that's kind of it when you compare the Fujifilm settings to Lightroom. Also, how Fujifilm controls these elements of the RAW file with the highlight, shadows, sharpness, and clarity settings are decently different compared to how Lightroom does. So you really have a different experience using Fujifilm recipes. Other than that, you have grain effect, color chrome effect, color chrome FX blue, the aforementioned dynamic range setting, color, which is basically saturation. You have a white balance setting that you can fine-tune by shifting the white balance towards more of a warmer or bluer, but also magenta and green direction. Now, what Nikon has is something closer to how Lightroom works. You have an application called NX Studio, and you have a few sliders and settings that you can change that are really close to what you can do in Lightroom. You have sharpness settings with clarity settings, you have the exposure settings, highlights, shadows, blacks, whites. Then you have HSL sliders for all the colors or the same colors that you have in Lightroom. You also have the three-way color grading dials, and you have a white balance setting. Now, the white balance setting is in camera, and you cannot save a white balance setting specifically to a recipe. I think it's a bad decision. I think you should be able to save a white balance setting to a specific recipe, because the white balance settings and the white balance shift is one of the core changes that you can make that will really give the recipe a personality. Saying all of that, you might think that the Nikon recipes would give you more flexibility than the ones from Fujifilm. And while that's mostly true, for some reason, I just couldn't get the results I wanted from the NX Studio app. The same settings can be found in Lightroom, but the sliders in Lightroom work totally different. The amount, the way it changes the look of the image is different in NX Studio compared to Lightroom, and I don't like how NX Studio does it. It just feels more limited, even though you have almost the same sliders and settings that you can change. Also, because Fujifilm has the film simulations as a base, you already have something a lot more special that you can just tweak and then change and have even more special, even more personalized towards what you want. That's why Fujifilm wins in the recipes section, because you really can get something special straight out of the camera and you don't need to edit. But with Nikon, you can get some decent files straight out of the camera, but I'm not really satisfied with the results. You might be, so it really depends on you as well, but I think the Fujifilm recipes have a lot more character and look a lot better. The Nikon Zf for me will have the same editing workflow of getting all the images down, culling them, and then editing them in Lightroom. But again, that's why I created those presets that I already told you about, and it seems to be working just fine. So enough of rambling. I already talked about these cameras too much. During this 2-week period, I was able to really get a feel for my new camera, the Nikon Zf. And from all the past experiences with other cameras, maybe this is the first time when I don't really feel guilty for selling my Fuji gear. And I think that's saying something. I really started to like this Nikon Zf a lot more than the X-T5, which is a bit weird to say, but yeah, I think this camera will be my next new daily driver for the foreseeable future. If you are interested in following my journey with this camera, then I hope you like this video, and I hope you will like all the new videos I will be putting out. I will try to talk more about photography as well, not only gear, but this channel I will try to keep a nice balance between gear, photography and traveling. You can also find a lot more images on Instagram. If you go to my Instagram profile, I put it up there, you will see a lot more images from my past work, from my past travels, and from now on you will see a lot more images coming from the Nikon Zf. If you are also interested in reading gear reviews, basically mostly gear that did not make specifically into a video, then head on to my website or to my blog, look around, maybe you will find a few articles that interest you. And if you consider subscribing to my newsletter, I will be trying to update once every week about what happened in the previous week on my blog, on my YouTube channel. Before we go, I wanted to mention just a few more smaller things about these cameras that I omitted in the previous sections. And the first one is the Fujifilm X-T5 has dual SD card slots, while the Nikon Zf has one SD card slot and one micro SD card. And I think that obviously the Fujifilm is the better choice because you have two full SD cards. Now with Nikon, I would be disappointed if I would just have one SD card slot, because even though I'm not shooting professionally, I would want some kind of a backup. And this micro SD card is a pretty amazing solution, because how many of you would like to have some sort of internal storage in a camera that you know for sure that it's there with you, and you will always have some storage that you could use to shoot some images even if you forgot about your SD card. My setup is basically I will save the RAW files on the main SD card and JPEGs on the micro SD card to not slow down the camera performance, and I will have the JPEGs as backups in case I do something wrong with the SD card and delete my images by mistake, like I already did once on my Japan trip. Yeah. The next thing is the buttons. The buttons on the Nikon are just a tad bit mushier than the ones on the Fujifilm. The Fujifilm has this interestingly nice clicking sound for every button they put on the camera. The Nikon also feels okay, but they have just a bit more softness to them, and when you click, you don't hear the feedback. You feel it, but you don't hear it, like with Fujifilm. The quick access to putting the camera into black and white mode is a really cool feature. I really did not think about using black and white modes, even though I have a recipe created for black and white shooting on the Fujifilm. I rarely switch to it. With this one, with just one single flick of a button, of a switch, I can put it in black and white mode, and I started using black and white mode a lot more because of this, which in the end doesn't matter for the RAW file because it will be in color, but it will matter from the experience point of view, because seeing the image on the screen directly in black and white will make you think about composition using only contrast to form and to create the image, which then will result in a better black and white image, obviously. And another quick thing, I really like the dial lock system on the Nikon more than the one on the Fujifilm. Fujifilm has this click toggle system, so you click once and then you can rotate, then click again to lock. And it's not bad, but you need to toggle back and forth every time you want to change and then lock it to not hit the dials by mistake. While Nikon locks you on specific points. So I can put the ISO dial into C mode, which will allow me to use auto ISO. And I cannot take it out from this mode. But then I hold down the lock mechanism and then switch it to a specific ISO setting. And while in this mode, I can freely rotate the ISO dial without needing to lock or unlock anything or keep holding the lock system. I think this is a really nice way of using these dials. And also because these dials are a lot higher quality, the clicking has a bit more resistance to it, so it's a bit more difficult to knock these dials out of the setting that you put them in. And that's it for today. I hope you got a good amount of information about these cameras from this video, and I hope you will have a better understanding of these cameras to make a better decision on which one to buy. Basically, my 2 cents on these: if you like how the Fujifilm files look, if you like the lightness and the handling of the Fujifilm more, then go with that or stay with the Fujifilm. There are a bunch of really nice lenses to this system. The whole camera is just a really nice and usable thing. But if you want something a bit more special, a bit better build quality, if you want that really crispy, nicer, results in your images. And if you want to try out something more interesting, I would say, then yeah, the Nikon Zf is something worth considering. I will also create a video about my new carrying setup. Basically, I have a new backpack and a new sling bag that I will need to share with you. And both of them will have a separate review on my blog as well. So consider subscribing to both my newsletter and my YouTube channel if you don't want to miss out on those. I will promise you that I will not spam your email inbox, so don't worry about that. Thanks for watching. You know the jazz. Subscribe, comment, like, and see you in the next one.